This is A Flight of Southern Witches, a podcast by two Australian witches talking to other Southern Hemisphere witches about what witchcraft looks like and feels like in our part of the world, and what it means to be a Southern Hemisphere witch.
Well met, friends. You can call me Mel. I'm a Wiccan who lives in Central Australia. I first learnt about witchcraft in the mid 90s and have dabbled in a lot of different things since, but always come back to Wicca.
And hello there, I'm Gill. I'm an Australian witch living on the east coast of Australia. I started my witchcraft journey back in the 1990s doing elemental magic and divination. We started this podcast as podcast listeners because 99.9% of witchcraft podcasts are Northern Hemisphere focused. And down in the Southern Hemisphere, it's not just the water that rotates the other way.
Hi, listeners. Welcome to A Flight of Southern Witches podcast. Today, we are going to be talking and discussing witchcraft with Gill, who is my co host of the show.
Thanks, Mel. So the point of these two first episodes is really to introduce Mel and I, and also to talk about a little bit about our journeys. So when we're talking to our friends later on, you'll be able to understand where we're coming from as well. So Mel,
Get
let's
into
get with let's get with the questions.
it. Okay. Oh, so basic, let's start at the beginning. How would you describe yourself and paint us a path, a picture of the path that you took to witchcraft?
Oh, I guess if I was painting that picture, it would be mid 90s. Me living on in a little coastal village where there was not a lot to do, and finding a book in our in our library at school, which I borrowed and kind of didn't return. But I would I would take that book home and would just basically practice the different little exercises. So I'd wander down to the beach by myself, and then I would, you know, I am very much a child of the craft era. So
Aren't
me
we
on the
all?
beach, collecting different elemental representations, creating my little circle in the sand, and then doing things like just meditating. I used to love watching the ocean and the waves. So
Mm.
for me, like the divination aspect of that, I found it really good for trancing out. So I would often just be sitting at the beach looking like the person sitting in this circle, just trancing out to the ocean. But for me, it started off as a real connection to my local area. It was connection to the elements, and it was about feeling like I belonged to a bigger system. So for me, it was actually a couple of different books, fiction books that I read, where I actually realized that what I was doing had a name, and it wasn't until years later, like a couple of years later, that I found those books, and I was like, oh, so I've been doing witchcraft. But also, I would say I grew up with a an Italian nonna,
Mhm.
and a lot of the little things she used to do when we were growing up. So we would every night when we stayed at her place, she would light a candle and we would for our ancestors. And so little folk traditions like that,
Mm.
which it's only now that I'm older that I'm like, ah, candle
Little bit
magic.
spells back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And when when we cook our sauces, our
Hmm.
sugo, and be mixing
Yeah,
in love. So she would get us all to stir the pot and be
yeah,
putting in our love. And
yeah. The
yeah,
product of kitchen witchery and
absolutely.
yeah, definitely know that feeling. So yeah. No, that's good. Books. It's books for everyone, isn't it? For a lot of people anyway, but books.
Well, I mean, I have to admit, I kind of feel compared to like the younger generation, I feel lucky because yes, the books were harder to find, but they were better quality as well.
Yeah,
Like, there's
yeah.
so much information out there now. Like, I get
It's very
overwhelmed, and
confusing.
I get overwhelmed by it, and I've been doing this for what? X amount of years. Yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking of that kind of thing, what has witchcraft meant to your day-to-day life? Like, what does it mean to you?
I think it's little things. It's, like when you're catching the train to work and there's a lot of people around you and a lot of busy energy, like creating that bubble of protection. For me, day to day, it's just those little practical stuff of, you know, um, when I used to walk home from when I used to walk home from the station and there were flies buzzing around me, I had this little sort of spell charm that I would say about shield of air, protect me there to keep the flies away.
Mm,
So it was like it was yeah, it was just little things where I kind of, especially elemental wise, that I kind of incorporate it and I still do to this day. And then also one of the first books I found and I absolutely loved was Psychic Self Protection.
mhm,
And that book about some like there's exercises that I still use, like when I have my morning shower of actually
mhm.
seeing myself wash clean and
Yeah,
yeah, and that
get
white
rid of
light,
everything.
energizing myself, getting ready for the day ahead.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, and I have to admit sometimes I can be really slack with that magical hygiene, but it, when I'm doing it, I really appreciate the energy that I
yeah.
have.
That sort of comes into another good question about like daily practice, and what daily practice actually means to a lot of people is not actually daily practice anymore, 'cause we're all busy and rushed, and taking that time to do daily practice. It's more weekly for me, but what about you?
Yeah. Well, I will admit that I notice when I drop that routine off, like I get more anxious and less sort of grounded in my energy if I'm not
Mhm.
doing those regular things. So for me personally, I find it's like trying to maintain that daily practice is it's the best thing for me. I can be really slack, especially when I'm traveling for work and busy and running around. Like not, yeah. I guess it's also changed as I've progressed in like my journey. So,
Yep.
like when I first started out, I bought everything. Like I had the wand, I had all the crystals, I had everything. And now I'll light a candle maybe and just that
That's
space and just being like totally aware of where you are
mm,
and grounded in like in that present is
yep,
really powerful. Because
yeah,
I mean, as someone who has had issues with anxiety, like my brain sometimes can be just like, "Meh." So yeah, being able to get into the present and just be in the moment is oh,
it's very
it's not
calming.
it's calming, but it's also so powerful because you
Mm,
actually feel yourself aligned and balanced in
yep,
that moment.
yeah, yep. So what other things have you tried out? Like, what other influences have you had? Obviously, witchcraft was your sort of starting point. What else have you sort of dabbled in?
So for a while, like I was really drawn to the Egyptian
Hmm.
pantheon,
Hmm.
and so that kind of led me into meeting some ceremonial magicians, and so I did a little bit of work with them and learnt a bit of the foundations, and I found it was really good for foundations, but I also, yeah, it wasn't quite my flavor. Like it
Yeah.
taught me a lot, and I still use like aspects of it, but
Hmm.
yeah. So I worked with an eclectic group for a while, and we we actually met at a guided meditation class. So we were all into meditation and tarot, and so that was a really fun social group, and
Hmm.
it was how I actually met more people in the Australian pagan community.
All right.
Yeah, so, like, at least back in the early 2000s, there was a lot of, in-person gatherings that were happening
Yeah.
well, especially along the East Coast. So, I got out and met a lot of different people and got a bit of exposure to what everyone else was practicing.
Hmm.
So, I've gone to a bit of some of the reclaiming things
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, and I've yep, tried some of yeah, different things that different groups were running, and yeah, was basically looking for my home.
Your
Uh,
flavor.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also now I realize that it doesn't have to be just one. Like you can have your personal practice and you can have your group practice, now I realize that it's not so much about the practice, it's also about the people and the energy of those people and feeling, that love and trust to actually share energy with people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that has stuck with me, um, because a lot of the things I will talk about is based on a Wiccan framework, because that's pretty much like my jam. But my HPS once made a comment about you part of the enjoyment of being in Wicca and traditional initiatory Wicca is because you are working in a group and you don't necessarily need a personal practice. You're seeking a group practice. That's why you're looking for initiatory Wicca, because it is group. It doesn't matter whether you have a personal practice or not, it's irrelevant. You're in it to find a group, and that's my jam. That's my jam. So yeah, the differences in how that works is quite interesting, I think, over time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I will say sometimes I get like it's not that I take the group work for granted, but I sometimes get a little bit lazy in my own sort of personal,
Mm,
individual
yeah.
practice because yeah, I really enjoy group work. Like
Yeah.
being able to share energy and yeah, like
Yeah.
there's just there's a certain level of energy that you just get with groups that
Yeah.
it's hard to create on your own.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, like anything, you magnify everything by whatever number, by one, by two, by four. It's always going to be more, and it feels the same way in ritual with groups, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then also it's that validation because like if everyone in that circle's feeling the same thing, like it's not just you, like,
You're not
oh, am I?
crazy.
Yeah, is this just me? Well, no, group of people, we're crazy together.
Okay, so sort of speaking about community kind of things, what role does community play in your witchcraft? Like, do you sort of go outside of your actual group, or do you do public stuff, or
Yeah, I will say that it's kind of been like peaks and troughs. So there's been times when I've been really active with like the broader community, and then there's been other times where I've just sort of that haven't I've been working with a group of people. I do, yeah, I do try to get involved with group community activities, like when I can time wise, but
yeah,
mainly it's because I really appreciate those people who are doing all the hard work to put stuff on. And I
yeah,
think it's important because it's really easy for us to all complain about, there's nothing on. So I really make the effort to turn up when people are running things
yeah,
because yeah, that's what you have to do if you want a community to actually grow and thrive.
yeah, yeah. You don't want to be
And
the apathetic one that makes the thing not work anymore, which is,
or the person who always just turns up at the for the fun part. Like I think building a community and building those networks, like that's got to be a sustained thing. It's not just turning up and
no,
taking the energy and running. Like it's a
be part of
relationship.
that. Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, so how has your practice changed since the when you first started? Obviously, going to the beach. Do you still do that? And like great little circles and collect rocks and things, or like
Oh,
you moved past?
rocks. No, I don't think I'll ever move past collecting rocks and bark and sticks. Like
Yeah,
because I do, I'll find sticks and I'm like, oh my God, that's the perfect one size. Do I ever actually go that next step of turning it into a pretty
yeah.
looking wand?
No,
But I
no. Yeah.
but I will still use that stick as a wand when I want to.
I'm a
Um,
feather and a feather and a stone. Feathers.
and see for me, shells as well. Like I have, and I know it's not kosher to be collecting shells from beaches anymore, but
No.
yeah, just maybe one every now and again. Only
Yeah.
one.
Perfect one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't do that, people listening. Don't take stones.
Well, I
Uh,
yeah,
that was
you have to yeah, I do think there are times when it's not appropriate, especially in Australia. There's some areas where you should definitely not be taking,
no, no.
bits away from. Um, but yeah, I will admit that, yeah, I'm still that little klepto. I see them as gifts.
Yeah,
Feathers are
they
gifts
are.
gifts
They are.
from the elements. Um, but I guess, yeah, I think the way that I think I think it's the thing of getting older and getting more confident in your
Mhm,
path as well. So, like when you start out, you want to look like a witch. You want to have all the extras and the
mhm.
accoutrements.
Accoutrement.
But I think as I get older, that and get more experience, that's not what I need. I still love to like do the Etsy scroll and the Instagram
Of
scroll.
course.
Like I like to watch it, but yeah, yeah, I think I'm just getting more comfortable with who I am. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. So what have you learnt about yourself on this journey? What has witchcraft taught you about yourself?
well, I've learned that I can't label myself. Like, it's really easy to try and like give yourself titles. Like when we did our intros, like I was agonizing, like what kind of witch am I? But I'm all of it and some of it and none of it, and it'll
Yeah.
change one day from the other. Like, yeah, it's. Uh, I remember there was an old proverb that I read somewhere, which was take a feather from every goose, and I'm like, that's totally.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, we take what works and we let the
Yeah.
rest go, and
Yeah.
so I think, yeah, not trying to label myself is probably the
The
biggest
biggest.
change. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then, yeah. And then also, like, just trying new things. Like, uh, one of the events that gets held in Sydney is called The Piper and the Stag. And it's actually where different people will share sort of mini rituals from their heritage. So,
All right.
yeah, like opportunities for different people to sort of share a bit of their culture and a bit of where they came from. So, like, I've also sort of shared a story about Bafana as part of that because it usually happens around sort of midwinter Yule.
Hmm.
So, yeah, like, I think sort of putting myself out there to also be doing things instead of just participating.
Right. Yeah. I think it's improved your public speaking, sort of like that being in front of people and giving talks and things. Was that an issue beforehand?
I would say that there was probably a little bit of imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
like looking at, that comparison that we do against other people and seeing what they're doing and thinking, and then actually remembering, oh, wait, I've been doing this for really long. I know stuff. Oh my God,
I can
I'm
do
the
it.
adult here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like where's the responsible adults? Oh, but wait, that's me.
I'm one of them. Although I've discovered recently that adulting is super hard. So, you know,
And that's it. Like with adulting in real witchcraft, there is no rule book. Like we've got
no,
guidelines, but yeah,
yeah, you
that's
kind of
about
just
it.
go with what happens.
Yeah.
Um, so what's one misunderstanding you'd like to clear up about your particular path that you're on or that you focus on?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of overthrowing what the stereotypical witch is. Like, because I still get it where people are really surprised when I talk about witchcraft because they're like, "Oh, you're a witch?" Like,
Normal.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, I think, and I think that's it. Like, just you don't have to look like a witch to be a witch. Like, it's who you are. It's not what you look like. It's not, yeah.
It's not an
Um,
aesthetic. Like it's
oh,
I mean, it is,
Uh,
but it's just
yeah, and let's face it, like when there's a big group ritual, we all love dressing up and
oh,
yeah. Like my housemate makes flower crowns, and I remember when I first moved in with her, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't really do flower crowns. What's the smallest flower crown you have?" And I had like the insy tinsy tiny flower
love it.
crown, and now she'll be like, "Oh, well, we're going to the Alfonso Mucha gallery opening, like a gallery."
Yeah.
And then we're all like, everyone's wearing the massive
Yep.
flower crowns, and yeah.
You're right
So
in it.
yeah, yeah,
I love that. I
yeah.
love that. But yeah, I agree with the misunderstanding, or that's that we all look too normal to be. We're not bog witches with hats and moles and yeah,
And that we're not scary. We're not, you
no, we're
know,
just normal people
yeah.
living life, trying to get through every day, pay bills and stuff. Um, so what are your hopes for the future of the path that as a witch? Like, what do you want to see for us?
Yeah, I guess I really, I'm really appreciating building that community and getting to know people. I think I went through a phase where I was really insular, like, so I had moved to a different city and I lived there for 10 years and never really sort of got around and met a lot of the pagans in that city.
Hmm.
Like I was still sort of sticking with my old, like, like with, the known relationships.
Yeah,
And when I moved back to Sydney, um, like sort of I wanted to sort of get out of that habit. It, w-
yeah,
I wanted to sort of get to know people and build those relationships and build that sense of community.
yeah,
Because with the craziness of everything that's happening in the world, I think community is what keeps us grounded. It's what keeps us safe. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are feeling sort of really isolated and a lot of people who are a little bit older who are just finding witchcraft or like feeling that they've got agency to actually be investigating it now. So
mm,
like I wanna help those people sort of have a safe journey into our community.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because it can be quite overwhelming with all the different, I mean, that's another great question as well about the trends and stuff on social media and online that you see that, some people may look at them and go, oh, that's not the kind of thing that I'm looking for. And, you know, feel like there's not a safe space for them to come into because it's not the kind of witchcraft that they think is what witchcraft is. So that's an interesting, yeah, the community aspect of it, I think is quite important to get out there and not be like the TikTok trends and things like that, which are very different. So,
And I do feel that the scarier aspects of paganism and witchcraft probably get more press
mm,
than the other parts.
yeah,
So one of the things I'm really sort of passionate about is, and I've been volunteering with the Pagan Awareness Network, is about actually that safety in the circle and
mm,
like just sort of having that resource out there. So
yeah,
of telling people like what are the red flags they need to look out for, like
mm,
and helping people to just yeah, trust themselves if they feel like they're in a bad situation and having someone they can turn to
yeah,
reality check. Like,
100%. So important. Yeah,
yeah, because there are people who don't have the best intentions, and I would say usually they're not the most, yeah, they're
no,
not the person who's there for the magic. They're there for,
for other reasons. But
yeah,
like, to point that out, that is every community though. That's
yeah,
not just paganism or witchcraft or and you go like car clubs are just as bad as, karate schools and photography clubs. Like there's
yeah,
potential for that kind of badness in anything.
yeah,
So it is always good to have those red flags, especially given what we do. And it is energy exchange and all that kind of stuff. It's very
yeah,
important.
and as part of a community, it's our responsibility to take care of our community members. So, like, if we want to build a strong witchcraft community, we have to look out for each other.
Correct.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. Um, So another quick question. I'm sure you'll love this one. If you could go back to your little witchy self sitting on the beach with her shells and her rocks around her in her little sand circle, knowing what you know now and the experiences that you've had now, what would you tell her?
And I would actually go further back. I would go back to the little Gill who's next to her nana and, like, ask like, I wish there were more questions I asked, like,
Mhm.
around the Italian folk
Oh, yeah.
traditions and things like
Mm,
that, like, 'cause so my grandparents have passed and all of those years have passed, so, like, yeah, I wish I'd actually asked some more questions about that, like, that sort of heritage side of
yeah.
it. But then I would also, like, the me on the beach would say, "You know what? It turns out okay. Like, enjoy it.
Yeah.
L Get out of your own head and enjoy it."
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big thing. I think a lot of us anxiety riddled people tend to overthink everything to the nth degree and then not forget to be in the moment of it, but it's difficult for us to just hang on, shut up a minute, brain. Let me just be here in whatever is happening right now. And now I think that's very important. Yeah.
And I do also think it is, like, a certain level of having that questioning is really important as well, like, for mental health
Yeah.
in this type of practice. You have to also be asking yourself, like, "Okay, was that real?" Like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah. Keeping it
Um,
grounded.
well, that's an important part of it anyway, being grounded and,
Yeah.
but so what is one of your favorite Sabbats or celebrations to be a part of as a
Oh,
witch?
man. I love my harvest festivals. Love my harvest festivals, love the colors, love the pumpkins. Even tried to do the traditional turnip. Now, I can tell you,
Yeah,
actually carving one of those things is hard work.
hard work. Yep. Yep. The little ones, right? Like they're like really,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, hard, but looked really great. And also, like, just, uh, so my housemate, also a witch, like, there was a vacant bit of land, like, probably about 100 a couple 100 meters from our old house, and for some reason, the council decided to grow wheat on it, and of course, the wheat grew, and it was just, like, there, and we're like, "It's the harvest. Let's" so, literally us grabbing sickles and running down the street, cutting down the like, it was the best fun.
That's great. I love it. And then like the poor council comes in the next day, like, where's our wheat gone? We were gonna use that for something. I don't know.
Well, to be honest, only the mice were using that wheat, so I feel like we did a community service.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I love the changing of the season and watching the leaves change, getting cooler. I'm definitely a cold weather girl, like,
Yeah.
and that's weird to say as someone who grew up on the coast and, like, beachy weather, but I love my cold weather, and I love, when you walk out of your door in the morning and you see that puff of air come out, and I'm like, "Yep, yeah."
You're having a cigar.
But yeah, and then, like, being able to I am not the best at baking things, but when it comes to actually doing, like, a bread doll or something like that, like, it's so much fun, and it smells so good. Yeah,
Mm,
that's probably it, it smells good. The harvest
yeah.
festivals have the best smells.
Yeah, that's true. Although I can't cook. I can't I've tried many times to cook like a little bread man that we're gonna destroy for ritual, and it ends up just looking like a blob. I'm not very good at the shaping of a bread to a man thing, but
Yeah,
one day.
the key is actually to, pop it in the fridge for a little while. If it's too hot, it kind of
Mhm.
yeah,
See, I like it. I like it. I have a tip for next year. So,
yeah. I mean, I will say it does stop it from, getting super big. We've had a few times where our little boy's turned into a big, big boy
boy, boy.
with big boy parts.
Well, they're easier to rip off then.
And it's like, "Damn, we're all gluten-free." No.
Oh, yeah, poor gluten-free. That's not easy to make bread gluten-free either, like, it
Oh, we just make the glutinous stuff and yeah,
yeah, right,
it
fair enough.
it goes it goes to the fire. It's not like we're eating it, so
Yeah, fair
yeah.
enough.
Or bury it or yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Um, well, I think that's, pretty much all the questions I have. Well, that's the episode today, everyone. Thank you so much for listening and joining us here. And thank you, Gill, for taking the time out to talk to us about your journey to witchcraft. Next episode, we're going to be talking to me about my journey to witchcraft. So make sure you subscribe and listen out for that episode coming out soon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.